All right, good morning. Welcome to the 2020 Passport to Careers State Conference. Thank you for being here. My name is Juliet Schindler-Kelly, and I have the pleasure to serve as the Director of Public Affairs and Strategic Partnerships at the College Success Foundation. And it's my privilege to open the conference today. But before we jump in, I would like to just take a moment to acknowledge the state of the nation we're living in today as we come together via technology to learn and collaborate to support young people. 2020 has been a harrowing year, and deep political divides and a pandemic have shone a light on other long-standing injustices. We woke up today grieving the loss of yet another Black man's life, learning more about protests and riots, and knowing we're in the final week before a very closely contested and highly charged political election. Presidential election, in fact. We are in a very challenging time, and thank you for letting me take a moment to call that out and acknowledge the commitment in this room, virtual room, to continuing to get up every day and working to make the world a better place. So thank you. About a year and a half ago, I took on the responsibility of overseeing the statewide initiatives team at CSF, which includes our work with the Passport Scholarship Program. It has been an honor to work with my colleagues on this statewide initiatives team, our WASAC partners, and you, the inspiring members of the Washington Passport Network. The Washington Passport Network is a statewide collective impact initiative committed to supporting students from foster care and those experiencing unaccompanied homelessness and the adult professionals they rely on. If you are a professional working to support students from foster care or those experiencing unaccompanied homelessness, in accessing, persisting, or completing post-secondary education or apprenticeships in Washington State, then we consider you a member of the WPN. So whether you've been involved in this work for years and you've been attending this conference since its beginning about a decade ago, or if this is your first time, welcome to the WPN. College Success Foundation and the Washington Passport Network team stand with you and with our youth as together we work to overcome the unique educational challenges foster youth and unaccompanied homeless youth face. This vital work is central to the mission of the College Success Foundation. And to that end, I'm happy to share a short message from College Success Foundation CEO and President, James Dorsey.
One second.
Good morning. Welcome to the 2020 Passport to Career State Conference, our first to be virtual. Thank you for being here. It's a very busy time for all of us, and Zoom team fatigue are real. Your presence speaks to your commitment to the students we serve. Before we get started, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation for all of our workshop presenters and keynote speakers. This conference would not exist without you. We'll be focusing on the unique educational challenges foster youth and unaccompanied homeless youth face. These challenges are profoundly compounded by the dual pandemic of COVID-19 and the lack of racial equity in America. We are united in supporting underserved students. Your passion helps us achieve our individual and systemic goals. This conference provides you with a place to connect with others who support your students from foster care and unaccompanied homeless youth. We hope you gain valuable knowledge, share recommended practices that will improve educational outcomes, and acquire skills and resources that enhance program impact. We aim to inspire one another with stories of success and ideas for innovation. Thank you very much for being here, and please enjoy the conference.
Great. I know James really would like to be here with us today and hopes to join us maybe later today or tomorrow. So now we want to give a brief overview of some important, exciting Passport developments that have occurred since last year's conference. First, our Passport Scholar Persistence Fund, formerly the Passport Scholar Success Fund, so first time hearing it here, the new name, was enhanced due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Together with the Washington Student Achievement Council, we redirected funding of over $100,000 over the course of just over 3 months to support 114 students facing housing instability, food insecurity, and other COVID-related challenges. We know supporting students is a priority for all of us, and we're grateful for your referrals and assistance in addressing those barriers. Second, in an effort to support Passport student recruitment and retention, we've partnered with a local advertising agency and are in the midst of an exciting video campaign. We're harnessing the power of social media with the goal of reaching more students than ever. We will be sharing a promotional video on our website and we'll provide you a link to view it in the coming weeks. And now it's my honor to introduce our first keynote speaker, George Duvall. George Duvall is a motivational speaker, author, and entertainer who shares his positive message of success with colleges, schools, and organizations across America. George spent 15 years of his life in foster care and youth facilities. Now he speaks to audiences about the importance of education and family using humor and his own unique journey from struggle to success. Welcome, George.
George, you're on.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone see me and hear me? Good. I'd like to thank WPN, first of all, for allowing me to share my story with you wonderful people that work with the population of folks that I love and try to encourage since I was for about 20 years now. That's first and foremost. So throughout this next hour, so as I share my story, please think of some questions to ask after the presentation is over with. Like Juliet said, my name is George Duvall. I spent 15 years of my life in foster care and in boys facilities here in the state of Kentucky. So let me just go ahead and just kind of give you an idea of where it all began. And it probably sounds familiar to some of the young people that you started working with or you are working with currently. I grew up with 4 other siblings, a single mother, 3 different fathers, but none of the fathers were in the home. So the streets began to give me a father at a young age. So I was 4 years old, 4, when I started to get in trouble in Lexington, Kentucky. So I used to walk from the hood of Lexington to about 3 miles, 4 miles down the road to go and steal candy at a store called Woolworths, which would probably be equivalent to Walmart these days. And I used to go in there as a young kid because I loved candy. So I'd go in, and when the clerk would turn their back to give the person their change, I would take the candy and I'd take off running because I knew they couldn't catch me. I was fast, even as a 4-year-old. But I used to do that every Saturday. And so as those Saturdays started picking up every Saturday, one day when I went down there one Saturday, there was a lady who saw me stealing this candy, young girl. And as I took off to go running, she blocked the door and she asked me, "What do you have in your pockets?" So I lied to her and I said, "Nothing." And she told me, "Well, pull your pockets out." And so like every 4-year-old kid would do at that time, I pulled my pockets out and then I started crying. So she looked at me, she goes, "You don't have to steal." I said, "Yes, I do." She said, "No, you don't." And she gave me an empty box. And she said, "If you go pick up all the hangers that are on the floor, I'll give you a quarter." So I said, "A what?" She said, "I'll give you a quarter." So I took the box. I went and picked up all the hangers. And it must have been a special quarter because when she gave me the quarter, I could have swore the quarter started singing to me. The quarter was like, "Ah." And so then I went up to the counter and all of the candy that I would steal, the Now and Laters, the Chico sticks and Boston baked beans, I handed the man the quarter and he turned his back to give me a little bit of change that was left over. So when he turned his back on me, I stole some more candy. But I'll tell folks that I was probably one of the only 4-year-olds that had a job because I came down there to pick up those hangers every Saturday. But what happened is as I started to get older, from stealing candy, I moved to start going to, when I turned 4, 5, 6, the street started teaching me new things. So I went from stealing candy out of Woolworths to breaking into cars, in and out of juvenile by the time I was 7 years old. By the time I was 8, I was very good at robbing people and robbing homes, and especially on the 1st and 15th of each month. So finally, one day when I went to court with my mom and my social worker at the time, the judge had finally had enough of me seeing me in the court. And so I remember my mother was sitting beside me, and the judge looked at my mama and told her, "Miss Duvall, you are unfit to be a parent. We're taking George with us." Now, at that time, I didn't know what that meant, but I know my mama started crying. And me being the baby of the group of her kids, when she started crying, I started crying. And when the man with the gun came from behind the bench and took me and put me in a holding cell with all of these big, tall people, and here I am, this 8-year-old boy. But you know, when you come from the hood, you can't do all that crying because you can't be a punk. So I went over to the tallest one that was in that cell, and I said, "Can you pick me up so I can see my mama?" He picked me up. I saw my mama sitting outside that door, looking through that little window. And then they took me and they put me in a juvenile facility that was for teenagers. Now, remember, I'm only 8 years old at the time. So there's a lady that I will refer to as my angel throughout my story. But if you want to see a video why I call her my angel, you can go to YouTube and type in "The Most Consistent" by George Duvall. And you'll see this lady who was in my life and was instrumental in where I'm at to this day. So she made a phone call to someone. And in that phone call, she let them know that you have an 8-year-old boy in a teenage facility. So they took me out of that facility right across the street to a temporary home for troubled youth. But I'm mama's baby, okay? So I'm about 10 miles away, but the one thing that I'm getting ready to do is I'm getting ready to run as soon as the light goes down. So the light went down, the doors were unlocked, and I took off running. Now I told you it's about 10 miles away. I was good, but not 10 miles good. So I started running. I started running down the road. And I like to tell folks that I was so fast, but I like to thank the Lexington, Kentucky Police Department and their K-9 unit for all of my training. That's how I got so fast. So I'm going down the road, and next thing you know, this cop car comes pulling up right beside me. Whoop, whoop. So I was so nervous. And the police officer put me in his car, and he did something just unbelievable. He took me to McDonald's. I said, "Oh my God, what kind of cop are you? You a super cop?" And he bought me a Happy Meal, and he sat there and he tried to tell me, "You don't have to run away, son. You don't have to run away. No, just do what you have to do and you'll get out of there." I didn't care what he was saying, man. Those French fries taste too good. So he took me back to the house. But you all that know foster care system, you know there's always some kind of plan that you have. And so there was a plan for me to stay in this temporary place until a foster home opened up 2 blocks away from my mama's house. Now, I just ran from your place about 10 miles away. To you all that work with young kids, what do you think I'm gonna do? And I can just envision you shaking your head right now. You darn right. I'm not coming back to that foster home. I'm going home to mama. So that's exactly what I did. I went home to mama. But like I said, the system, there's always a plan. And so the plan is to have me stay in this temporary home until a spot opened up at a place in Kentucky, in Lexington, called the Bluegrass Boys Ranch. I'm gonna let that sink in for a second. Boys Ranch. I come from the hood. We have street lights, tall brick buildings everywhere. That's a ranch. The only ranch I know coming from the hood is ranch dressing. So they took me down this windy road in Kentucky through all these trees and pulled up to the ranch with the social worker. And all the boys, right, on this hot August day, all the boys are in front of the ranch and they're shooting ball, and they see the new kid come up, and they're all looking at me, got the shirts off, just mean mugging, let me know what's going on. So I stay in the car. The social worker gets out to go and talk to the director of the home, and all the boys come running up to the window where I'm at, and they look at me, and the big one goes, "We're gonna kick your," I said, "What?" I told that social worker when she got back in the car, I said, "You can't leave me here. They're gonna kill me." So the young boy that was there, the young boy that was at the place about my age, came around the car, grabbed my bags with me, and he walked me to the room where all the new guys stay. It's a community room. So the social worker was talking to the director, and me and this young boy was in the room, and then all of a sudden you hear the pitter patter of all these feet coming down the hallway. And the big one, the biggest kid there, comes right up to me, and he punched me right in the face. And I was like, "Oh." But where I'm from, I was getting into fights with kids bigger than him. So I grabbed my eye and I punched him right back. But then I took off running. Remember, I told you, canine training. I was good. So I took off running down the hallway. And as I was running, I saw that red exit sign. So I turned to the right. The red exit sign, there was a door that led out, and it went through the kitchen. And on the way out of the kitchen, there were a block of knives. So the kids were giving chase to me. All I remember is grabbing the biggest knife, running out that door, stopped in the yard, and I'm waiting right there. And the kids come running, the boy comes running up to me. He said, "Yeah, I'm gonna kick you out." I was like, "Okay, come on then, get some. Come on, come on." But see, I'm new. I didn't know about the director. No, I didn't know nothing about the director. All I know was that boy heard the director coming, and he moved out the way. And the director walked right up on me while I got the knife in my hand. And he goes, "Give me the knife, George." And as a young 8-year-old kid, I shouldn't talk to that grown man like that. I said, "I ain't giving you." That was a mistake. This director must have been about 9'6", 9'7". He looked at me and he did something that scared the holy mess out of me. He goes, "You gonna give me the knife?" And he starts chewing. All I saw was him start chewing on his tongue and his eyes burst into flames. I threw that knife right down on the ground. He picked it up. He told me I was going to get punished. I didn't care nothing about the punishment. I looked at him and I said, "Just don't eat me." So after everything got separated or situated, cool, all the kids went back in the house. The director told me about my punishment, told me to go back to my room and stay there for the evening. After dinner, I had to stay in the room for the evening. But you all know what I'm getting ready to do that night. I'm not staying there. So that night, I decided that I was going to run. Now, this place had one door out, or you can come into the very front. So the door that was out was one way. You couldn't come back in it. So I decided I was going to run. I did the fake sleep until everybody went to sleep. And once I knew everybody was asleep, I took off running out the back door. But remember, I told you this is a ranch in the country of Kentucky. So I took off running, and I realized I couldn't see. There was no lights. The only light that I saw was the moon coming from the trees, coming through the trees. But off in the background, I heard moo. So I'm sitting there walking down this road when I can't see, and trauma happened. I looked up at the moonlight and the trees were covering over the road. And I promise you, and there's nobody on this earth that can tell me it's not true, I could have swore that those trees looked at me and said, "Hey, little boy." All I remember was going, "Ah!" I started screaming, and I started running back towards the light of the ranch. And I had to go around to the front where the entrance was. And the director was there, and he was looking at me because I was shaking, crying. And he's trying to stop from laughing as he watched me. And I said, the trees said they were going to eat me. And he starts laughing and he said, go back to bed. We'll take care of this in the morning. But I'm going to tell you something that happened that night. I said to myself, I ain't running no more. No way. And I don't like trees. So as I was still at this facility, I would be able to go on my home visits. And now I'm 8 years old going on 9. And now I'm going back to the same place on my home visit, and I'm getting in trouble with the same kids that I was getting in trouble with when I was younger. Now I'm getting older, and each time I'm going back there, I'm still doing the same thing. And now the dope boys are really wanting me because they know that I have this fearless type of mind. So after being there for several years, I was going back and forth, and things were going great. And they had this barn at the ranch that we stacked full of hay and things like that. And I used to love going to the barn because, just to get away from the house for just a minute or two and jump on top of the haystacks and things like that. But one day, the director and a couple of the workers that were there were taking all the other boys to a movie or an outing. And I was having a home visit with my mom. And so I was waiting on her to come get me. And so I come from the ranch and I go into the barn. I go up to the ranch. And when I opened up the door, like the pressure must have opened the door of the director. So it opened up and I realized that no one was there. So I just walked in. And when I walked in, on the corner, out the corner of my eye, the paper that you get, the sleeve of money that you get from the bank. There was this little sleeve that had bills coming out of it. And I was trying to mind my own business, but the money called my name. So I had to go and get it. And then I left the ranch when my mama came and got me. And I came back to the ranch with a bike. I was fast, but not very smart. So the director looked at me, said, where'd you get the bike? I said, my daddy bought it. Well, he knew right then that was a lie because my father had never been in my life at all. And then he started doing that thing that scared the mess out of me. And I told him, I said, yeah, I took your money. He called the social worker immediately and told that social worker to come get me. The social worker showed up, had my black garbage bag ready. And I'm going to tell you something. Out of all the social workers that I've had, to this day, I only remember this one. And I'm going to tell you why. Because she was fine. Goodness gracious. I used to look at her with those googly eyes. I said, if you be my girlfriend, I'll start getting in trouble. So then I loaded up my bags into her little car, and she took me down those windy roads, and we got on what I know now is Interstate 75, heading north. Now, the difference is when she took me or any of the other social workers took me to places, I was able to stay awake. But for some reason, we got on that interstate, I went to sleep, and I woke up, and there was a driveway that had trees covered. So I really started freaking out. But off in the distance, I could see these big skyscrapers. And I asked her, I said, what are those buildings back there? Because they didn't look familiar like Lexington, Kentucky. She said, oh, that's over in Cincinnati. I said, Cincinnati? I said, how far is that from Lexington? She said, oh, it's about 90 miles away. I said, 90 miles? So you know why I'm upset now, right? What can't I do? I can't run. Not 90 miles. I don't even know how to get back to Lexington. So this is what I decided to do. I figured at my young mind, my young age, if I went in there and started trouble immediately, they'd have to take me back to Lexington. So we got out of the car. I didn't say nothing. I just walked up to the first kid that I saw, and I hit that poor boy right in the face. But see, what I wasn't used to is like their staff must have been trained in some mad Brazilian MMA jiu-jitsu style. This cat hemmed me up, had me twisted like a pretzel. And I'm cussing this man out, and he is zen calm. I said, get off me, get off you, get off me. Well, I can't get off of you with you cussing like that, George. You have to calm down. No, you better get off me. I can't breathe. Well, if you couldn't breathe, then you couldn't talk like that. Now, could you, George? I'm like, oh. So finally, he let me up. They took me to my room. And for the first 6 months, I didn't get to go see my mother or siblings. And I was just a bad kid. I was a bad kid for the first year there. But I realized I wouldn't get the privileges. So now I'm becoming a teenager. And I'm starting to think, oh, come on. I got to figure this out. I'm good at being bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fake being good. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fake being good. So, you know, when you're working with young people, you always want to, as a person in the facilities like that, you always want the adults to see you doing something good. So when we got finished eating one night, without being told, I grabbed my plate. I grabbed the plate of the other couple of guys, went into the kitchen, made sure the adults are looking at me, scraped our plates, put them in the sink, walked past the adults. They're looking. Next day, we got finished eating. Everybody scraped their plates. I took the garbage bags out to the dumpster without being told, but they're looking at me. Fine. So then they had a wood shop for recreation for the boys, and we each had a different day where we went. But nobody wanted to clean up the wood shop because you got extremely messy. Not me. Jack, when I got finished, there was wood chips all over the floor. I grabbed that big industrial broom without being told and started sweeping up everything, getting all the dust on me. And the director of the shop pulled me to the side and said, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, I'm just checking. I ain't never seen you just do something without being told." I said, "Okay, yeah, that's fine." So I keep doing everything I'm supposed to do. And so the staff members had their Monday meeting, which was right by our room. And I heard them say, "Hey, have you seen Duvall? Yeah, you know, his attitude's changed. Yeah, yeah. So maybe we should talk to him about the foster care program." And I said, my plan is working. So they came and talked to me, and they said that they were thinking about starting a foster care program with local families in the community. So they come and they asked me, they said, "Have you thought about being in foster care?" I said, "Will it get me out of here?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, yes, I have." So they took us and got us some little spiffy clothes and stuff like that, and sent out the pamphlets all in the community. And on Sundays, they'd have the community members come up to the house, and all the boys would stand around like we don't have no problems. And me, I just sit there and smile at all those adults, just let them think that I don't have no kind of problems. And so, but what happened was this young kid comes running up to me, right? And we just hit it off. And so we went outside and started playing, kickball and throwing baseballs and stuff like that. And you could see the director of the facility is standing on the porch with it looks like to be his parents. I didn't know it was at that time, but they were watching him and I interact. So evidently they loved the fact that their kid was interacting with me and that we were getting along. So they asked the director if it was okay for them to come and get me one Friday to take me out to dinner to see how I would act with their daughter and their other older son. So, of course, they had to talk to the social worker. Social worker gave permission. They came and got me, and they took me to a restaurant called Frisch's. So I would think it would be Zips would be the closest thing in Washington. So they took me to Frisch's. And it was weird how it played out because they had the youngest son sitting on my right, had me right there beside him, and then they had the father, the daughter, and the oldest son, or the father, the mother, the daughter, and oldest son. And they told me what I should order. They said, you get the big boy with fries and get extra tartar sauce because they got the special tartar sauce. So I did. They brought it out. I just watched what the boys and the father was doing. And all three of the men, the males, did something I've never seen before. All three of them pushed back from the table at the same time and started rubbing their belly. So I said, oh, I can't be the odd man out. Let me go ahead and push back and start rubbing the belly too. So I did. And then the father looked at me and he goes, I know you're not done yet. So I kind of looked at him. I was like, and then he asked the waitress to come over there. The waitress came over and he starts whispering in her ear. So then I started getting suspicious. I was like, I know he ain't gonna try to stick me with the bill. So the waitress leaves and she comes back with this big old hot fudge sundae. And she set that bad boy on front of me and it had a cherry on top that looked like the size of a baseball. I said, excuse me, I have to go to the restroom. And I went to the restroom and I looked up underneath the first stall, nobody was there. I looked underneath the second stall, nobody was there. Then I looked in the mirror and I said, this family's rich. They can afford dessert, please, God. Let them pick me, pick me, pick me. So after dinner, they took me back to the home. Things were going well. They came and got me. And I spent the night, one night, Friday to Saturday, took me back. Things were going well. Then they picked me up on a Friday. Then after church on Sunday, they bring me back for about a month or so. Next thing you know, I was their foster kid. But see, at my age now, I knew this. This was going to be easy. If I could fake being good in this facility, it's going to be easy to be good with these people. Because there's two things I know at that age. No one cares about foster kids. And they can't love me because I'm Black and they're white. So this is going to be easy. I remember that first night many years ago. I can picture it right now. That first night after dinner, we all sat around at the table. It was weird. Everybody had their own place at the table. And they cooked food that didn't involve the government. I thought it was wonderful. Now, she could have seasoned the chicken up a little bit, but that's a whole different session. So imagine walking up the steps of this house. And so you have 3 bedrooms. The first bedroom is where the daughter stayed. The second bedroom is where the youngest son and I stayed. And the last bedroom is where the oldest son stayed. And so I can hear them coming up there up the steps. And I hear them going to their daughter's room. And I hear them kiss their daughter. Good night. Good night. We love you. Love you too, Mom and Dad. And so they came into our room. Now, mind you, the first bed you see when you walk into our room is their son. And mine is the other one on the other side of the wall. So I would be facing towards their son. And when they walk in, so they walk in and they do this. They walk in, they grab their son's cover, pull it up, tuck him in, kiss him on the head. Good night, son. We love you. He looks up at him. Good night, Mom. Good night, Dad. Love you too. And I'm looking at these people like, oh, that is so sweet. But then they turned towards me and started walking towards me. Hold on. It was like a scary movie as they walked towards me. All I remember was grabbing the covers, looking at both of them and going, no. They pulled the cover off, tucked me in. Both of them kissed me on the head. Good night, George. We love you. I looked at both of them and I said, all right. Where I'm from, Mama say, go to bed. No, but I know that feeling. You ever had that feeling inside your head where it just feels so funny? It was because they told me something I never heard in my life. They told me that they love me. And to this day, I do not get off the phone with my kids without saying, I love you. So what happened is I was the only Black kid in this rural area of Kentucky. So now that I'm getting older and I'm starting to have positivity in my life, this family is not having an understanding of what how the community is affecting me. But see, I became a big football star. So they didn't allow some of the things in the community to affect me. So now that I'm turning, after being there with them for 2 years, this is what happened. And I'm gonna tell you folks real quick. If you are placing a child of color with non-colored people, y'all need to make sure there's one thing that they should never run out of: lotion. This family, after being with them for a couple of years, ran out of lotion one day. And so I get out of the shower, and the only thing they had underneath the sink was Vaseline. Now, I don't know if you know about the humidity in Kentucky. It's pretty bad. And so I get out of the shower, slap on this, bling, and I'm walking down this country road to go to the pool with the fellas. And I had to slow down. I looked at my arms. I said, why is my skin boiling? But the only good thing about having all that Vaseline on, I was the only kid that could dive into the swimming pool and just come out and shake dry and keep on walking. So as the years went on, I stopped having that thought about trying to get back to my mother and having the positivity. Letting the positivity that was in my life at the time started affecting me. Plus, people are telling me that I could go to college, including my angel. She drilled in my head over and over again: you have the ability to go to college. And so at some point, I started believing in that. But also, what took place with this loving and caring family was racism entered. So it doesn't matter how big or strong I was or how good I was on the football field. Society told me that I can't forget about my Black skin. So when I took this information to my parents at the time, and I would tell them that teachers are using N-word in classes, people in our church are using the N-word. Heck, my foster father's nephew was dropping the N-word. He would say things to me like, "Oh, we're not talking about you," but the jokes were like big lips and big nose. I got big lips and a big nose. No, I remember one time when I was a teenager, I remember girls wouldn't kiss me. "He'll swallow my head." But they would tell those jokes. And so all of a sudden, as I started to become 15, 16 years old, where I'm from, you don't use the N-word if you're white. You use the N-word as a white person from the hood, you're pretty much going to get a beating. But I could not fight at that time. Not that I couldn't fight. I could fight. But I couldn't fight. But if I did, I was going to be taken away. And I wasn't going back to foster care of those teenage facilities, for sure. So I would take that to my parents, and they just didn't know how to deal with it. And so I tried to tell folks now that it's very important, if you're going to place a child of color with someone different, that it's very important to stay in tune with their culture and walk in their purpose with them, beside them. But this family just didn't know how to do it. So I met a kid when I was in elementary school who lived about 15 miles up the road and went to the same middle school and high school that I did, Black kid. And so this family that I'm living with now that I'm a teenager decided that they had enough. Here I am, this strong Black kid coming to them with these issues, and I wasn't the one that's just going to say, let God take care of them. I'm ready to stand up for myself. So after so long of doing that, they told me one day, "Well, we're going to be leaving." I said, "Okay, when you guys going to be back?" They said, "We're not." They said, your dad took a job out in Washington State." I said, "Okay, well, what about me?" It was like, "Well, your social worker is going to figure something out." So after spending years with this family, all of a sudden it's going to abruptly come to an end. So now I'm thinking I'm definitely going to go back to Lexington and be with my mom, and I'm just going to have to be on my P's and Q's. I know what's going to happen then. I'm going to hit the streets. So I told my best friend, who's African American, and I've been in and out of their home for years. Sometimes I spend weekends with them. And they were the one that could take me to go get my haircut, because believe it or not, my first family didn't know where I could get my haircut. They would wait for me to go on whole visits to Lexington. So they didn't know they could go right across the bridge over into Cincinnati. And there's plenty of places they could have let me go to get my haircut. They just didn't know. So I told my best friend, I think I'm going to be leaving. So I had grown accustomed to being with their family so much. The next day in school, he came to me and said, hey, talk to mom and dad. And they said that if they qualify, they'll be your foster parents, so you won't have to leave. And I was so excited. I was so excited that I went home and I told my first family, I said, the Harrises are going to take me in so that I can stay up here in Northern Kentucky and finish out the rest of my high school. And so they were happy about that. And everything got squared away. Next thing you know, I moved into a home that I wasn't unfamiliar with at all. So we moved in, they moved the older brother out so me and their younger son could be together. And when I moved in, they treated me exactly like their family. And when I say exactly, some of y'all get what I mean. Exactly. They didn't care that I was a foster kid. They didn't care about what I did in history. They told me to stop blaming my mama and don't blame the social worker. We're here to work with you. We're going to get you out here. So then I started believing in myself. But see, this was different. So you got to imagine, here I am, this big football star. And so the only thing I'm thinking about is give me the rock. Not big on education, but they were. They were. So here I come in with my report card, and I've got this D on it. Progress report. And I have this D on it in biology. And the mother, she was no joke. She was no joke. She said, what is this? I said, it's a D. She goes, why do you have a D? I said, because it's biology. No, nobody used biology. I can't understand her. And she looked at me, and her husband would always stand at the side, just co-sign. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then she looked at me and she goes, well, I tell you what, if you don't get this D to at least a C, you're not going to be playing no football. Or no, there's no bowling ball, George Duvall. And she got on the phone and she called the coach and told him I would not be playing unless I got my grades up. Coach was at my house every single morning to pick me up, take me to school, tutor me so that I can get my grade up so I can continue playing. But they really didn't care about football to the point to where they let me invest in myself with just athletics. They cared to the point to where at the time I'm getting ready to graduate high school, they showed me so much love. They gave me so much confidence. When I went to them about the racism that I was experiencing, they did not allow it. They were the first ones to confront the kids' parents, and they were the first one to go into the school and talk with the principal about some of the things that are happening in the school. So fast forward, I'm getting ready to graduate high school, and I've got these different offers to go to these different schools to play football. But I was scared now because now that I found some place where I feel comfortable, I'm getting ready to leave, and I was afraid that they were going to stop loving me. So they packed my stuff up, or we packed the stuff up, put me in the car. They took me down to Eastern Kentucky University. They helped me set up my dorm room, and then they gave me a key to the house. Said, if we're not home, just go on in. Your room is still there. And I was thinking, oh, okay, that's cool. But I used to write my best friend, my brother. I used to write him letters all the time because him and I became like that. I mean, you would never find one of us without the other. So when I got to college and he wasn't there, I was afraid that he was going to stop caring about me as his friend. So for the first year, I used to write him a letter a week, telling him everybody this, just blah, 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 blah. Used to tell him we were having parties, just anything to get him down there so that he wouldn't forget about me. And so finally, he just got frustrated with all the letters. And he wrote me back this simple letter. He said, stop writing me all these letters. Ain't nobody going to forget about your butt. Quit being a punk. And I kept that letter and was just a reminder. And when I graduated college, he was the first one down there to graduate. But I want to tell you something about education. This family was serious. And when I walked out of those doors and I went to college, I promised them one thing. I said, I will be the first person in our family to graduate. And when I graduate from college, and I said, you got to understand at that time, they made me feel as if I was their child. I'll give you a great example. They come home after work one Friday and say, pack some clothes for a couple of days. We're going to Alabama to see family. They're having a barbecue. And Alabama's probably 5.5 hours away from where we were. So I said, don't you need to call my social worker? Man, my soft-spoken father looked at me and goes, what? We need to call your social worker. Why? You gonna tell? No, I ain't gonna tell. Well, get your ass in the car then. So I hopped in the car. We went down there. And they introduced me to their family, and they introduced me as their son. Now, between you and I, if they didn't know their family didn't know I wasn't their real son, somebody's got a problem. That's definitely not my family. But there was a confidence that they instilled in me. So even when I got to college, I used to write that letter to my brother. When I graduated, he went to he went and joined the Navy, and I used to write him letters. He used to write me letters. And then on 9/11, his was the first ship to be deployed overseas. And it was a USS Afghanistan. And he went over there, and we used to write back and forth. I used to tell him that I'll take care of my nieces and nephews. They'll come down to my house, and they'll hang out with their cousins. And I used to write them letters, write back and forth, tell them about the scores, tell them about where I'm going to go, wherever I've traveled. And then one day I get this big, gigantic packet. And it had this USS blah, blah, blah on the front of it. And I open it up and I start reading it. And this cat chronicled the very moment that we met. From the very moment we met in elementary school, junior high school and high school, about the importance of our friendship. And I remember this one particular part of the letter. He told me, he said, G, he goes, I was sitting on the edge of the ship, and I started thinking about all the times you were worried about us losing our friendship and love for one another. And I started crying. And he said, I'm gonna tell you something, bro. The day that you find those tears that fell into the ocean will be the day that I stop loving you. So I'm a grown man. I was So fast forward years after he comes back, and we created this. I wish you could see it. I would show you this stupid handshake. It's so ridiculous. But we created this stupid handshake, and we agreed that every time we see and leave each other until the day we die, we'll do the stupid handshake. And it's just ridiculous. And so one day, and I'll close up. One day, I flew out to California, and I always try to fly out of Cincinnati because that's where my family was. So one day I was flying back in from California, and I went over to the house, and my mom's was the only one there. So I walk in, let her know that I was there, got something to eat. Of course, all the kids, I'd never stop being a kid. So I walk in the room, and she's laying on the bed, and she has this worry face. And when something's wrong when she has a worry face. And so with the worry face, I asked her, I said, what's wrong? She said, oh, nothing. I said, there's something wrong. And she said, oh, Greg, my father, Greg and I went to fill out our will the other day, and we can't find nobody to sign it because most of their family was in other states. And I said, my wife at the time, I said, that's no problem. No, I'll go get my wife. And we'll come back up and we'll sign the will. She goes, no, silly, you can't sign it. I said, why? She goes, because people that are in the will can't sign it. So I didn't think much of it. I didn't think much of it, but I kissed her on the forehead, and then I got in my car and I started driving back down 75 South. But then I realized something when I got about maybe 10 minutes into it. I felt all this wet on my shirt. So I was crying that entire time. Because here I am now, a grown man, college educated. And even in death, this family wants me to know that they're taking a part of me with them. So finally, after so many years of my life, I could truly say I belong. And that is the family that I belong to this day. So whenever I'm home, well, now that I'm home, we'll go see each other for Thanksgiving, or we'll make sure to have a phone call every other week. And those are the type of things. But I'm gonna tell you something. If you get anything out of this, one of the most important tools that was given to me was telling me and showing me the importance of education. So I told you how I was this big football star. I got a 1.2 GPA after my first year and was threatened to have my scholarship or my financial aid taken away. And the disappointment on my parents' face when they saw my grades changed my life. I packed up my football pads. I walked over to the coach's office and I gave my pads up. And I told them I had to focus on my education because I promised them. And that's exactly what I did. I gave up the one thing that gave me a vehicle. But then I found what I needed, and that was education. And when I was no bigger pleasure on my parents' face than when I walked across that stage, you'll see some pictures if you watch that video, when they said class of 1999, turn your tassel, all I know is it was official and wasn't nobody gonna take it back. I threw my hands up and I said, thank you, Jesus. So don't ever stop giving up on your young people that you work with. Drill it in their heads. Get them out of their comfort zone. Take them to a college. Help them look online. Walk with them. If you don't know the answers, there's plenty of counselors that are out there that will help you find. But let them know, because sometimes in these young people's minds, they think that because they're a foster kid, that they don't have opportunities. Matter of fact, they may have some opportunities that kids that don't go through foster care have. And they need to understand that. And knowing that just the chapter of their life may not begin with them, how it ends is up to them. It's not the end all and be all. See, the cycle has been broken. My kids will never see a day in foster care. And they are educated, loved, and our foster kids deserve to see and understand what that love feels like so that they too will one day have children and break that cycle. Once again, I'd like to thank WPN and thank you all for listening. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I look forward to answering any of the questions that you all have. Thank you and have a great day.
George, thank you so much for sharing your story with us again. Can you hear me, George?
I can't hear you.
What about now?
I can barely hear you.
Oh, that's interesting. Can you hear me better now?
No, it's the same thing. I'm sorry. Is it my computer?
Okay, let's try.
Now it's like echoing like in a crazy movie.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, Donna, someone said, Alicia said she can hear you. Hold on a second.
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay, I can hear you now. It's just echoing. Go ahead and speak, Donna.
Okay.
Yep, I can hear you. I got you.
Okay, good. It was working earlier, so I'm wondering what happened. George, I lost you.
My cord came out.
Oh, okay. I lost you for a quick second.
Okay.
All right. So we do have a few comments and questions for you. I'm just going to read them from the audience. First one is a comment from your EWU family. They just wanted to drop a huge hello to you and wanted to share that they miss you, in particular the staff from the admissions team, and they always appreciate hearing your story and getting to learn from your experience.
Well, if they can hear me, you tell them I said thank you, and it was a joy working with them.
Great. Any other questions? I do see a hand raised, so I can also unmute as well. Carrie, if you had a question. No? Okay. Another comment, beautiful story, and they'd love to hear from you if you're still, or they would love to hear if you're still in touch with your family.
I am 100%. That's to the end.
Another just appreciation of you for sharing your story with us today.
So thank you very much. Hopefully some of the young people that you all work with one day be doing the same thing on your behalf, and they can speak and let you know what some of the work that you guys are doing and how special it is, because I know you guys don't get enough praise. And I was one of the kids that used to say that social workers are only doing this for the money. But now that I'm older, I apologize.
George, actually, we're getting a few questions in here. Actually, comments and questions. So first one is, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Mr. Duvall. It's clear how important supportive relationships and education are, and I appreciate your wisdom.
I appreciate yours. If you're with this as a person that is working with young people, I hope that you are able to successfully help them get into school and let them see the importance of the work that you are doing as well.
Great. Couple of questions for you. Were there any college advisors who were particularly helpful to you in navigating college? If so, what made them helpful to you?
What made my college advice? There was one, and he was actually one of the professors, and he is still to this day a really good friend of mine. He's a professor in math, and when I wasn't getting my answers from the admissions, he would actually walk over there with me. So it was like a joint effort, because I gravitated towards him because, you know, when you go to a predominantly white institution, sometimes you don't have a black male or black figures that's positive, and he was the one. So if there was anything that helped me gravitate towards the admissions, it was him, and him sharing his time with me.
Great. Another question for you is, do you share your story with students?
Of course, of course. You're talking about just the high school students, is that, I'm assuming? High school?
This was a general broadly with students, but if there is a specific population of students that you share it with, age group?
Yeah, majority of them are either college or high school. Mm-hmm.
Great.
I'll tell you something funny. So you know about the Chafee Independence Act, and the funding that goes into it from all the different states. And I told the story at one of the high schools here in Kentucky years ago. And I said that if you're a foster student in the crowd, and I think they had about 1,300 students. And I said, if you are a foster student in this crowd, come and talk to me, because if you didn't know, you could go to college at any of the 9 state universities or community college for free. And I had a line of students that didn't go through foster care ask me how they could get in so they can get their tuition paid for.
Couple more comments for you. Thank you for your story. I think it's important for kids and families to realize that they can too break the cycle.
Mm-hmm. I think what happened with me is that like I said, look at that video, the most consistent. She drilled that into my head from when she met me when I was almost 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She consistently drilled in my head, and so I started believing it, because the system is not going to always tell the young people positivities. And then if they go back to their biological family and they see the negativity that's around the biological family and things like that, I mean, it's important to show them there is a possibility for you to leave. You're going to have to leave. You're not going to stay forever. But why not set them up with the ability to have something that can never be taken away, and that's knowledge.
Right. Yeah, I also dropped the title of the video in the chat for folks if you'd like to view at your own time. Again, it's The Most Consistent by George Duvall on YouTube.
And remember, I just gave that to this lady who I call my angel. I just gave it to her about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And she is still very much into my life right now. So you're looking at 40 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing to have a relationship. Yeah, mm-hmm. that long and stay connected with someone.
Mm-hmm.
A couple more questions. How can we, in the university setting, address that feeling students may have of not belonging? For example, the imposter syndrome.
What was the syndrome?
Imposter.
Imposter syndrome. I don't think I've ever heard of that. Um, so when they say imposter, what are you impersonating?
Like feeling that you don't belong on campus. Because
Oh, yes. Okay, I would tell you that to me is that is deliberate. That is something that can't be taught in a book. You have to, if you're looking at it from admissions, or you're looking at it as a person, especially if you're dealing with someone of color and you're on a predominantly white institution, you have to be intentional to think what that need is for that person, that young person. And if you're dealing with people in foster care, if they feel like that and they feel like they have nothing or no one to communicate with on that campus, and they feel like the world is against them, they may not even stay in college. And some of these young people, we have to we have to be intentional is what I would say. So finding a person or persons that they can connect with on that university or community college campus so that they don't feel like they're out of place. And when you're dealing with a school and you're like EWU, when you have what is it, less than 4% of African Americans on the campus, it's very important to be able to connect with those people, with those young people of color that are on that campus. And fortunately, I had a good relationship with many of the admin folks over there, and we worked things out.
Yeah. Okay, two more. We have a few minutes left. Any advice for those who work with students who don't have a family? What are ways to support those students even when you can't bring them home?
That's a great question. Finding resources out in the community, because you as an employee may not bring them home, but there may be someone in the community or church that may be willing to allow them to stay for a couple of days or try to build a relationship with them. So besides my angel, I'll give you another example. Besides where she lives at, there was a man who saw me working in her yard, doing some things for her, and he wanted to have some things done, and he would allow me to come over to his house. And so we built a nice relationship. So trying to figure out what resources that you can surround that young person with, to get them in the mindset of where do you want to go. Um, I'm not for sure of all the resources that out there in Spokane and other places in Washington, but trying to surround as many people as you can to help them get into a direction that you may not be able to connect with them with.
Mhm. We're getting more questions. Okay, I'm gonna just keep reading them. Let me go back right now. Well, it's similar, but this one is, do you keep in touch with, the first family you were with several years before they moved?
No, I don't. No, I haven't spoken with them in years. It's not that we have a negative relationship. I've just found out this is actually about maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Their plan to come out to Washington was only supposed to be temporarily, but they told me it was forever. But I tell everybody, we may not have worked out in the long run, but they were the first family to give me and show me what love looked like. So I appreciate them to the end.
Mhm. Okay, two more questions for you. We'll take the last two, and then I have two comments to share to wrap it up. So the first question is, one is, thank you for sharing your story. What advice would you give to a young adult who wants to drop out of school because of the prospect of earning $13 an hour? How do you make them see that education is an investment?
You find somebody that knows how to work the numbers. You find somebody that knows how to work the numbers, and economically, what can $13 an hour really do for you as far as your living? Now, that may help you get to a day to day, but longevity wise, you're going to make more money with an education than you will without one. And that's been proven. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, if with a bachelor's degree over a lifetime, you'll make $1 million. That's not guaranteed you're going to have $1 million in the bank just over a lifetime. So giving them numbers and letting them see how far that money can really go. Because sometimes young people think that if they've never had money, if they worked at a job making $7.25 an hour, like the minimum wage is here in Kentucky, and then all of a sudden they go and they get a $13 an hour job, they think that, oh, I'm good and I'm set and I'm ready to go. But what is it that they really want to accomplish in life? But then I had some young people that say, why am I going to college and getting a college education and then getting out of there and I'm only making $15 an hour?
Mhm.
But what is the longevity? How can you break that, mentally break it down so they can see it in the paperwork and those numbers and see how it works? So if you make $13 an hour, how much is it getting taken and put away through taxes?
Mm.
Do you know what a 401k is in retirement?
Mhm. Yeah, those are all good things to consider and have a conversation, right, with the young person about. Okay, so last question, and then after this question, I have 2 comments for you. When did you, excuse me, when did you realize you weren't faking being nice anymore?
You know what? I think it was the night that they told me that they loved me. When they told me that they loved me, it changed my whole perception on whether I wanted to try to get back to my mother or not. And so I didn't have to fake it anymore. I was not in the boys' facility. I was able to do things in the community. Um, I was building relationships with other family members. People started trusting me and those type of things. When they started trusting me, they would leave money around me. When I go and visit some of my friends' houses, my friends would have all these fancy things. And back in the day, Bad George would have tried to steal those things. But it meant more to me that they gave me trust.
Right. Okay, last 2 comments here. First one is, I was devastated to hear how you, at the age of 8, was put into a jail cell. This speaks to the inequity in the judicial system toward Black and Brown children. However, this was a blessing for you because of your family situation. Was your mother ever offered the opportunity to get you back? Sorry, that was
No.
actually a comment and question.
No, she was not. And you want to know the crazy thing about that jail cell? So you can go to my website and look at this video that I made for a promotion video for my book.
Mhm.
And we actually went back to that jail cell to shoot it, and they allowed me to go in, but the director that was shooting the video wanted me to close that cell, and I wouldn't do it. I told him no.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's powerful, George.
Hmm.
Okay, this comment wraps it up with the Q&A. This person just wanted to share that they really appreciate everything that you had to say, and that it was such an encouraging and meaningful speech.
Well, thank you all very much. And again, Donna and WPN, thank you all for having me. And I wish you all the best of luck working with your young people. Just don't give up on them. Just don't give up on it. Everybody has a little bit of light. If I can make it out with this great, I didn't make it out alone.
Mhm.
And some of these young people feel like the only way they're going to make it is if they're on their own. Don't allow them to think that way.
Right. George, thank you. Again, we really appreciate all of the time and energy that you put into this, and appreciate you just being so real with us and sharing your story. And there will be another opportunity to connect with George tomorrow afternoon. He's going to be facilitating a networking session, one of them, and the topic in conversation will be about the Black Lives Matter movement. So if you want to join that session, George will be facilitating and I'll be there to support him. Thank you, George. We'll see you again tomorrow.
All right. I'll see you later, Donna. Care.
All right. Oops. My device. Okay. Can you still hear me?
I can't do. I need to leave.
Yeah, you can stop sharing your screen. I'm going to pivot over to the PowerPoint.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna log out.
Okay. Thanks, George. We'll see
Take
you
care.
later. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Donna Quach, and I'm the program manager for the Washington Passport Network. And I've had the honor of serving on the statewide initiatives team here at CSF for the past 5.5 years. And before we go into the workshop, I just wanted to give a quick overview of what to expect for the next 2 days, and then give some directions to what to expect for this afternoon's networking session. excuse me, one second, just bear with me. Okay, so we do have, we're really excited, first of all, for all of you to join us, and we have some great content lined up for the 2 days here. And thank you all for joining with us for our first virtual Passport conference. As you can see, we're learning as we go. And we're really excited for y'all to join us in this capacity and be able to connect in a different way with your colleagues and other practitioners that are part of this larger Washington Passport Network. And so just a few quick notes about the conference. All of the sessions, as you probably know by now, will take place via Zoom. And so we sent an email a couple days ago with Zoom links to each workshop. So the way that it'll work is you can choose any workshop that you'd like to attend. You don't need to pre-register. The link is there with the passcode, and if you need to dial in, the phone number is included in there as well. So at the time of the workshop, you should be able to click that Zoom link, and once the host is on, then you'll be able to join, and we'll admit everyone into the Zoom session, and they're all set up as meetings. So if you participated in a Zoom meeting before, it'll feel just like a usual Zoom meeting. A few things to note is you can view the conference schedule on the Washington Passport Network website, and we'll also drop it here in the chat before we leave today, and you can click that link to view the conference schedule. Actually a couple more things. So all of the workshops, except for one of them, will be recorded. This keynote session is being recorded right now as well, and all of them will be uploaded on the Washington Passport Network YouTube channel in the coming weeks. So if you aren't able to, participate in a workshop live, don't worry about it. We will have it recorded, or if you want to stay in one session, you can view another one at another time. And final note is I wanted to thank all of the presenters, workshop presenters, for sharing your knowledge and your expertise and your time with us. We're really excited for you to deliver the content over the next 2 days. So just to give you some instructions or more details about what to expect for day one's networking session, which is today at 2:30 to 4 p.m. So we have set aside time for all of you to join a breakout session with folks and practitioners in your local region. So on the screen, you see 8 regional groups. Some of these groups have already existed, and they meet on a regular basis, quarterly, bi-monthly. And then some of these are groups where practitioners in the region have identified as a need for wanting to get together to coordinate services, to share resources. And so we wanted to carve out some time specifically at the Passport Conference for you all to connect really with the folks in your local region, to start thinking about how you can, if you're already working with each other, that's great. Or if you don't know each other, this is the opportunity to connect through Zoom with folks in your area. And so the way that the breakout is going to work, or how you'll join the regional groups, is if you selected a regional group when you registered, we have pre-assigned you to that group. If you did not select a group or need to change groups, don't worry about that. We'll be able to do that live once you join this meeting. So it'll be one meeting that you join, and after you join, we will pre-assign you to breakout rooms. Tomorrow, so that's end of day one. And then for tomorrow, we're going to start with workshops first thing in the morning at 9 a.m. So it's 9 to 10:15. And then we will rejoin as a large group tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. for our second keynote speaker, which is going to be Jamaica Lewis Haynes. And if you have any questions throughout the 2 days, please feel free to reach out to our team here at CSF at passports@collegesuccessfoundation.org. We have someone monitoring the chat, or excuse me, the inbox. And so we should be able to reply to you fairly quickly if you need support with troubleshooting or any questions about the conference. And so at this time, what we'll do is we'll all exit this meeting, and then you can join the first workshop of the conference, and there's 2 of them. The first one is Deeper Dive with Kateri and Shoshani. Excuse me, I'm forgetting the second workshop, and it's on the schedule right now. So you'll see the links available, and if you have trouble logging in, please reach out to us. And we'll see you again soon throughout today and tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.